Warm autumn greetings, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 25th, and this is episode 63 of the Enough to Keep Going podcast, the GX Show, Gamer Experience Show. I am your host, SwissGuard. I'm joined tonight, it's just the two of us, with Agasicles Stamus, who is getting the social media out, but the Gamer Experience Show, you know, we get to do what basically brought us to the podcast, which is talk about video games. We don't really talk news. We talk about what we've been playing, what we've enjoyed, what has been lacking, and we just kind of get to be gamers around the water cooler. So tonight we have, looks like a lot of shooter talk, which is rather unusual, I think, for us. You know, we play a wide variety of games, but actually, it's not unusual for Agasicles. It's unusual for me, SwissGuard. So it should be some good discussion. I have some points. I've been playing some different things than I usually play that I'd really like to get into. As we always do, I think this is going to be the last of the Picks Plays episodes too. At the end of the show, we're probably going to tip our hand regarding some of the changes that we're going to have with the show starting next week, which October 2nd. And one of the things is going to be we're gonna tweak Picks Plays a little bit so that, you know, we're not picking individual games, but we're gonna have more of a theme going on so that we have some more flexibility and to foster more discussion. But tonight, Agasicles will do the final report out on what seems like he's been playing forever, or supposed to have been playing forever, which is Call of Duty Ghosts multiplayer. So Agasicles, how you been? I see you have the E2KG merch still going strong.
Yeah, you say, how have I been, as if we were just in these seats 24 hours ago. So,
you know, when you're a family man, time loses all meaning. Like, I don't even know what year it is half the time. You did notice that it took me a while to find the date, and I was excited that I actually knew what season it was, which is why I led with it. And it's also emblematic of the fact that you know, DB and Prime couldn't be here, so the audience is stuck with me hosting. So
right, and but next time it'll be at least 3 of us, maybe 4. Yep. So I had a long-term Picks Plays assignment broken up into 4 segments, and it took me a long time to chew through those. However, unlike the Battlefield 1 multiplayer attempt, this one was actually successful. I was able to get in and find some players. So there were generally, for like the general deathmatch or whatever that I played, there were basically, I think, 60 players who were online and available. And actually, the surprising takeaway from it for me was I actually had a good time. I entirely expected not to. Again, I attribute most of the decline of quality multiplayer in the world to the Call of Duty franchise. But surprisingly, it was kind of like putting on a comfortable old sweater. And the volume of players was such that you kind of would play recurringly with the same players over and over again, which actually I prefer. I prefer not, getting shuffled off. I mean, if you're in a good match that you start feeling comfortable in, I would just prefer to kind of stick with those same players. Kind of makes me feel like there should be almost some like entropy constraint algorithm in matchmaking that attempts to, as much as possible, tether you to the players that you had been playing with whenever you exit and re-enter a match. So it was a good time. I just played like the standard mode. I didn't try and get all fancy and get into a bunch of different modes. It's actually a thing that I find unattractive about shooters. Like, I don't like. Look, I love those guys, but back in the casual adult gamer days, you know, you would go into a Halo match and they would be playing all sorts of crazy modes, and I'm like, I don't know these modes. I can't be bothered to learn them. Like, I just want to play like the regular, straight up shooter and just have a good time with everybody. And that's kind of what this session of Black Ops was. Actually, while I have been trying to onboard with Rainbow Six, and admittedly in this month, since my live streaming efforts have gotten a little more complicated, and I've gone back to a little more churn in setting up different studio rigs, I have been going back to Rainbow Six less and less. Black Ops really kind of hit the sweet spot for me. Call of Duty Ghosts really hit the sweet spot for me, and I may be going back. I may be going back in lieu of playing more Rainbow Six. It's less complicated. It's less preamble. Matchmaking happens quickly. One of the discussions that I want to do on this next show, and one of the like new format pitch plays that I want to do, is I want to experiment and hear your guys' feedback on the dopamine cycle, right? Which is, you know, how quickly and how frequently do you get that hit of dopamine of something happening in the game? You know, in single player campaigns, it's a lot of times it happens from loot drops, particularly when those loot drops return something, you know, not necessarily super unique, or in the case of Destiny 2, which we'll talk about a little bit later on tonight, legendary. It doesn't always have to be legendary. It just needs to be like cool and different, or provide an opportunity for you to apply a shader, which I've been doing more of in Destiny after, you know, months and months of, like, again, not being bothered. So that dopamine cycle in Call of Duty Ghosts is pretty quick, even in matches where I wasn't getting a high number of kills. You know, I'll cop somebody else's words. I think it was either the Game Scoop guys or maybe the Kind of Funny Daily guys. But one of the things they mentioned is the allure of, and I think they were talking about the new Battle Royale mode in Black Ops 4. Part of the allure of Call of Duty, which I will cop to, despite my negative regard for the franchise, is it sets up, you know, each encounter sets up an opportunity where any noob, anybody who's just a casual player, there is a statistical chance that they're going to get, at least in that instance, a kill against somebody who's a veteran and who plays all the time. The asymmetry of the combat, and the instances where somebody's perks or skill set level or whatever is kind of neutralized by just where the encounter takes place, how fast both assailants are moving, in which direction each one is facing, just really creates this Russian roulette wheel of what's going to happen when two players come across each other.
Now, you said that you didn't really expect to have a good time, and that COD represents the decline of multiplayer. So in what aspects did this game kind of exceed your expectations? Like, do you just misremembering COD, or is this like was this a different experience than some of the older titles?
Well,
I guess it is an older title, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, so the big thing for me, the big thing that was problematic was, of course, now when I played COD, I played on Xbox 360 and PlayStation, so there were these heavy multiplayer games. You did have a community of people, and you did have people in open chat, right? So I blame, the reason I ascribe the decline of quality multiplayer to COD franchises, I feel like COD was the thing that brought in the hardcore casual gamer, right? And we've talked about this before. We've labeled it as different things. I still come back to a different term for it each time, but it brought about this gamer who only plays Call of Duty and Madden each year, and they really don't care much about anything else that's going on in the gaming industry or the gaming world. And they're kind of like bulls in a china shop, right? They come in, they're super aggro, they're hyper competitive, but their shtick is to play their like one or two games that they want to become experts in, and then to talk trash about everybody else, you know, who doesn't do that, right? So that is primarily what I ascribe to Call of Duty, because I felt like the influx of those players, particularly to the Xbox Live platform, at that point in time, radically increased with the popularity of modern warfare, in particular Modern Warfare 2.
So you wouldn't classify it as a gameplay or mechanic type assessment. You'd almost classify it as a toxic. Well, I don't want to use the term toxic community because I think that's it's the horse is dead at this point.
Right.
But so the community affected your opinion, and the fact that you've gone back far enough where that, as you described it, what did you call it? The dedicated hardcore casual for the bro gamers.
Right. Those people aren't there.
On. Yeah.
Right. So, so you don't get death threats, when you kill somebody. This is PC gaming. So I will say, like, the trade-off in PC gaming multiplayer, right, is you get the risk of cheaters, and what you trade off for that is maybe people aren't as toxic, at least because everybody doesn't have headsets like they do on Xbox Live. So it's a slightly different dynamic, but point being, I didn't feel assaulted or like I was getting mugged in an alley playing. And like I said, I had a pretty good time, like I said, in conjunction with that dopamine hit and that cycle rate of feeling rewarded. Again, my kill death ratio wasn't that high, but again, I maneuver around that by not caring about my kill death ratio, right? All I look at is, did I accomplish something that rendered me less than entirely useless, in a given round? And as long as that's the case, then I'm happy. So
I have a comment on kill death ratios when we get to some of my games later in the evening, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
So, you played the regular death match. Did do you feel like that's like an archaic structure or anything? Like, do you, like, nowadays it just feels like like you said, everybody wants to play fancy, modes, and you have your battlefields and your battlefronts, and everything is more structured to be competitive gaming, like esports. Like, even if it's not like an esports title, it still has that structure. There's the more competitive nature rather than just kind of, like you said, throw in there and just have fun.
Yeah, it's always going to have a shtick, right? And I get that. I probably do a little bit of the same thing myself in things that I do and create, but it's just not what I'm into. Again, I guess I feel like those modes, for me to be interested, need to be a little more, intimate, as far as like playing with people and playing against at least teams of other people. Now, I guess the closest analog I would draw to that is like Chrome Hounds. So Chrome Hounds was not just straight up deathmatch. Each mission had a different set of objectives. Sometimes it was just simple search and destroy. But the point is, you played with squads. It was very tactical. Pre-mission, you could get in the squad room and talk and establish your strategy. And we were always calling plays. You two guys go this way. These two guys go this way. This person's going to operate alone. The commander's going to go to the top of the hill. Like, all that stuff. And when it's that, to me, it's worthwhile. I think probably where I grate against some of the other modes that are going on is, it's great to have really fancy modes, but if people are operating as a team and aren't communicating, and everybody doesn't have headsets, it doesn't matter, right? I'm not interested.
The big criticism of Overwatch there's people that love Overwatch, obviously,
right,
and it's a massive thing. But when I hear people criticizing it, it's that it's designed to be structured with teams, and there has to be some cohesive strategy,
right.
And people are just the Wild West out there. So
yeah. It's similar to what Rainbow Six co-op was when Vegas hit the consoles, right? Where I would get frustrated because I had grown up with Rainbow Six from like the Rogue Spear days and had been super tactical, and having done that stuff, elements of that stuff in real life, I would get frequently frustrated by like the teen gamer who was just blasting through it like it was, Call of Duty, basically, running, gunning from room to room, employing no tactics. And I'm like, the way you're playing the game just makes it pointless to have this game. Like, we may as well go play Call of Duty. So yeah, that's that intersection where I feel like, the value of a thing can just be driven to zero.
Well, it's I'm kind of glad to hear you had a positive experience with it, because honestly, I mean, shooters aren't my cup of tea. Like, every now and then, like, I pick one up and I enjoy it, but they're not my primary genre. So and I've kind of ripped Call of Duty off a long time ago just because I was terrible and didn't feel like investing the time to be competitive in it. But it's good that you had the good experience. Has it changed your opinion on Call of Duty Black Ops 4?
It may have. Whereas and I make my game purchase decisions by reviews, for the most part, and I typically initially queue off of critics' reviews, but then I also bounce PC games against Steam user reviews. So generally, I just don't. I'm not a game reviewer anymore. I spent some time doing that. That is a painful existence to live. And at this point, for games, I'm not spending my $60 to be the guinea pig for anybody else. So, whereas with Black Ops 4, I wouldn't have picked that game up no matter what the reviews scores were. Now, if it happens to be the best athlete, right, when my little reward system of buying a new game comes around, I will not give that. I won't handicap that one, and select some other game simply because the other game is not Black Ops. Not necessarily think I'm going to go out and hunt, right? So whereas like. Right. Forza 4 is definitely on the list, right? No matter what. So Black Ops hasn't achieved that level of accolade, but it's no longer in the it's no longer it's gotten out of its unfavored nation status.
All right. Cool. Do you have anything else you wanted to add about it before we move on?
No, man. I'm very interested to hear about your experiences in Destiny 2.
All right. Well, I think we might have alluded to it on a previous episode, but you and I and DBQ's uncle played some Destiny 2 a week or two ago. Unfortunately, that was the last time I had a chance to play it, but it's been crazy here the last week. I haven't been playing. I got up at 5 a.m. this morning just so I could play some games, so I have something to talk about tonight. But we played for me in a long block of time. It was only 3 hours, but for me that's like a significant amount to sit by myself in the room playing a game. And I had a lot of fun with it, and the more I played it, the more I get you and DB's enthusiasm with the game. And I'm probably going to bleed into my Battlefield 1 talk, because I wanted to make sure I played some Battlefield 1, which I basically picked up because it was $5 on sale in the lead up to Battlefield 5. And I wanted to be able to compare like different types of shooters a little bit and see what I enjoyed. And I got to say, like, the more I think about Destiny 2, the more I'm drawn back to it. Like, I understand, like you talked about Call of Duty being, you jump in there, you just want to play with some friends, you're not really caring about the kill, you're just trying to have some fun. Destiny 2 speaks to me as far as the fact that it's so lore driven, and I know we got some some discussion into Flock on that, but it's a flavor of shooter that I speak the dialect, because it has a little bit of, the RPG elements. It's a little bit more story driven. It's a little bit more lore driven, and I feel like I enjoy the mission structure a little bit. And finally, I just, like you said, it's just fun to. I feel like when I'm fighting, there's just firing the weapon and throwing grenades, whatever. It feels right, and I don't know how to describe it. Like, I know you guys have alluded to it, and I wish I could articulate what it is about the game that it's satisfying when I get like a headshot critical hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd suggest. I'd actually consider it sounds like it's the hero factor. It sounds like you get into it and you hear that swell of the heroic music kind of ringing in your ears, and you're like, and what I like about it, and what it might also be is it might also be it's a very weird analog, and I don't know that it's one that we all leap to intuitively, but it's kind of like it's kind of like the larger puzzle, right, or the bigger Rubik's cube. It is this thing where, as you progressively are able to handle larger and larger challenges, you get immediate, tangible, visceral feedback on your increasing capability to handle challenges, right? It's very movie-like, right? You're the guy who wades into the bar, right? You're the marshal who wades into the bar. In the first time, there's 6 miscreants misbehaving, and you put them all down, right? As that increases, and you show up on the battlefield, and there's like 30 people, and like you're like the Jack Reacher who's like, just remember, when this is all done, you guys asked for this, right? I wonder if it's part of that gets conveyed, particularly with its accessibility, right? Because part of the problem with those games that try and render that effect is when the controls are too complicated or too esoteric, and you have a lot of options for dealing with things, but readily accessing those options in a very graceful manner becomes complicated. I don't know. Does any of that sound like it rings true?
The hero factor does a little bit, just because of the way, like, they structure it where you're not. I mean, you are just kind of like, for lack of a better term, a soldier in a bigger fight, but you play a central role too. So that's kind of positive. I will say that, yeah, and as I level my character up and get better weapons, like, I feel the feedback loop, but I guess I don't know. It's the mixture of it being kind of like a shooter, a little bit of a very casual way that you can hook up with other people. Like, I like that too. It's not, you're not, I haven't gotten anywhere where I'm forced to, like, interact and build a community and join a guild. And I know that's there, but it's been, I feel like you can casually get together and do some co-op, and just maybe I just enjoy, like, the sci-fi semi, in a way, spiritual story with the traveler and everything, is, I think, I enjoy the setting, but it's not just dumb Space Marine to me.
Right.
The level structure, I like that when I'm doing a mission, going through a level, there's kind of a flow and a direction. And in a sense, it's a little bit more old school in that I can get a sense that, I don't want to say herded, but the developers do a good job of directing me on a path through the level. They don't just build an open world and be like, oh, go try to do something. And you know, there's people that like that. I I like the structure a little bit more, and that's where I feel like that's a little bit more of a older school RPG sense. Like, I mean, Final Fantasy, you're going to be, the level's big, but you're going to have kind of a structure to get from point A to point B as you go through. So I like that. I will say, you made one comment that I had to, talking about, like, you know, the pace or whatever, but when we were on Titan and I had difficulty with the platforming, oh, you mentioned that it's like the controls are easy. For the most part, they are. Sometimes the jumping is a little wonky, and I felt like a platforming sequence in this game is probably not the best decision, just because it felt out of place.
Yeah, there's, you know, we talk about systems, right, and subsystems in these games, and yeah, the platforming systems and the challenge system for the verticality challenge system is one I don't appreciate in this game. There's too much of it. So,
and when I was thinking too about, like, so the system that I appreciate most is just like with the combat. It's not overly fast where I feel like I have to be like a psycho Twitch gamer to succeed. But I do feel like my ability to properly move around the battlefield and utilize cover and you know, just it feels like the timing is right for everything. And I, you know, I feel like moving, you know, like moving my aim around and everything, it feels natural. Like I remember playing Call of Duty, and it just felt like, you know, you had to adjust everything, and you know, you're flying around the map, and the pace, the game is paced well, I think, as far as like the combat encounters and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's things that the developers in its, you know, in the game's design that they chose not to do right. And one of the things you mentioned is it has always and forever, I would contend, felt completely cheesy and like cheating when the method for a game to achieve its supremacy over you is for the enemy to constantly increase in speed, right? To just become a thing that you can't possibly counter. And they chose not to do that in this game. Like, enemies don't miraculously start moving around at the speed of light. The way they increase challenge is they increase challenge by increasing the constitution of any given enemy. You know, they're a more persistent threat. They hang around longer, and the longer they hang around is an opportunity for you to get, you know, wall up, especially from some of these enemies that, you know, take you down to the red zone with one hit. And they also do it with numbers, right? And you mentioned, you know, it's not a Twitch frenzy, super hectic game, but there will be points where, you know, what I experience is like the volume of resistance is just such that, you know, I'm like, I can't even tell what's going on the screen right now. And as you mentioned, you know, that's the kind of thing that forces you to cover. And I know one of the tactics that I use is trying to isolate small formations, right? So if I get chased to cover, then what I try and do is carve the pie out on one side of a column, and I constantly try and like position a column in between me and somebody who's firing at me, so, you know, they can see me, but they can't hit me. But then what I try and do is it takes you a while, because I think, particularly if you don't play a lot of shooters, what you're inclined to do is just to remain relatively stationary. But that manner of changing the vectors of the battlefield by completely repositioning on like a different side of a formation, I think is one of the keys to not only being effective but making the game feel fun. And like I said, a lot of times what I will try and do is reduce, you know, attrite that resistance by trying to isolate small formations of two or three enemies at a time.
So Yeah, like I said, uh, I'm not a heavy Destiny player. I don't have that many hours. I haven't finished the first campaign or anything, and hopefully this weekend I can put a little bit more time into it. That's always my hope, but I have hope that I put time into a lot of games that don't get attention. But yeah, I don't know. When I first heard the kind of pitches about Destiny and like it's an always online, and I don't know. I got my World of Warcraft. Like I enjoyed World of Warcraft, but I didn't want to commit like into that game. And in my mind, it was just like, okay, it's World of Warcraft kind of in space with shooters this time. It's just they were trying to, and I like what they pulled from the MMORPG genre, but it feels well done, and it still allows me as more of a solo gamer, or if it's not solo, it's just kind of like co-op with my friends to experience that and have fun with it. So
yeah, I mean the last thing I'll mention on it is I can't remember if you and I have talked about it, but other people have talked about it maybe, but we talk about the need for speed releases and how I guess the one that was a PlayStation 4 launch title, lots of people don't care for it. One of the things I loved about that game, and the reason why I loved it overall, was because of the join a chase in progress thing, and that's very much what you have in Destiny, right? You have the ability to be persecuting an objective or just a throng of enemies, and somebody can run by and it's instantaneous co-op, and there's zero barrier, right? It's not like that person has to come from one fabric over into the other. They just happen to be running by, and like it kind of feels realish, like if there were really Guardians patrolling the galaxy and they all operate independently. We'll talk about their organizational skills later. Like, I don't really understand like how you have a bunch of Guardians and everybody just goes out and patrols whatever the hell they want to. But so if somebody happens to be in your vicinity also conducting a patrol or in the course of a mission, you could just meet up with them and start going after the same thing, and that feels very organic, I think is what I would call it. And I think that's part of that.
And I wish I had more time with it to have more of a substantial discussion. I think I'll revisit it on a show more when I've completed the campaign and have seen some of the higher level experiences and some of the different experiences in it. I'm still pretty much experiencing it as a neophyte first time. But if you don't mind us skipping the game, your first game in the agenda, you've played some of the DLC and the late game Destiny 2, and how'd that go this weekend?
Yeah, so even though I'm delving into those things, I'm still kind of coming late to the game, right? Curse of Osiris, the first DLC, dropped in, I think, last December, so short, not too long after the game's actual release. And then Warmind was this spring. And I haven't gotten into Warmind. I have been playing. I played through Curse of Osiris and completed that. It went well. The things I like about revisiting Destiny 2 are, my own sense of conservation, right? That leads me to do things like just amass tons and tons of shaders and never use them, right? I'm starting to loosen up about that. The degree to which I was vexed about, the fact that you get shaders now and you have to apply them to individual pieces of equipment, that you didn't just apply one shader and it kind of gave you like a unitary colored uniform. That really bugged me. I've gotten over that a little bit. I've also started to gamify certain things a little more. Like I really kind of get a kick now out of, because I never really understood like why, like ships, like what was the whole point in having them. But now, since they're like one of the few cosmetic things that are way obvious for somebody to see who you're fire teamed up with, I'm investing money in trying to collect one of every ship class, just simply so that, when a fire team rendezvous in space or takes off to launch the next thing, the people who are with me, like, see the uniqueness in my ship, either by shade or our class. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been delving into. I've been trying to start builds of one of every class on PC.
And you have this on PC and PS
and PlayStation 4. Yeah, and I haven't gone back to the PlayStation 4 version in a while. I think a friend of the show, Everett Harn, who is a podcast host over at Geeks Worldwide, recently acquired it. Well, he picked it up off the this month, right, when it's free on for PlayStation Plus members. So I'll probably be heading back over to the PS4 version here shortly as well.
All right. Let's see. I'll go ahead and talk some Battlefield 1 then.
Yeah, man.
So, like I said, I just picked it up just because Battlefield 5 is coming. It was so cheap. And they actually, like a week ago, all the DLC was free if you had it. So, like, I basically picked everything up for $5. If I played it 20 minutes and had a decent amount of time, I make my return on investment. So, so the last couple of mornings before work, I've tried to play, and I actually have enjoyed going through the single player campaign. The game is very pretty, and I like the setting, but this goes back to my Destiny talk. Some of the game feels too big, and I know that there were a few times when I was going through, and I haven't even gotten to the multiplayer aspect, but I was doing a mission where I'm basically escorting a tank through the woods, and I have to take out heavy guns and little encampments of the Germans so that my tank can push through. And they'd be like, the game would hit the, I'd do whatever I had to do, and then the game moves on to the next like objective, and it's like, oh no, they're counterattacking, and like I'm on this part of the map, and I'm like, I don't see anyone, and then they're like, we're getting blasted over here, and I'm like, what? And I'm like looking around, like trying to find where's the German guy, and then like the AI basically kills off everybody, and like I shoot one guy, and then it's like mission objective complete, and it's like I don't really feel like I contributed, but I swear I was trying to find them guys. I wasn't hiding, you know what I mean? So and that just might be a little bit of, I'm not a very good gamer, but I felt like the structure was a little bit, there's areas where the structure was a little bit different. I, as a history nut, I'm enjoying the setting, and just that aspect. One thing that I have not liked, and I am going to also compare it back to Destiny 2, and I really wanted to get these two near together so I could think about things, is the, how do I phrase that in my notes? The I don't know, the set pieces, like so you're going through and it triggers something happens, something cinematic. It's not really cinematic, it's in game, an event, and there were times when I'm like, do I just suck, or am I supposed to die here? Because and it's just like, or I'll be doing something and my tank gets stuck in mud, and I'm like, crap, that was stupid, I should have gone around over there, and then oh wait, no, it was an event and I was supposed to get stuck in the mud because that's what triggers the next event or sequence, and I don't like that. It's one thing to have cinematics and a story. And as a fan of RPGs and action adventure games, you know, that speaks to me. It speaks to me on a deep, deep personal level, and I enjoy that. And that is a carrot for me. Loot is not as much of a carrot as a good narrative for me. However, when it confuses me in game and it rips me out of the experience, it's not a good thing. With Destiny 2, there hasn't been as much of that. Like, you know, for the most part, you know, when there's a cinematic, and the only thing that's annoyed me about Destiny 2 is like there'll be like a counterattack, and like the Red Legion or whatever they're called will have dropships come in, and one of their stupid little spherical dropships will like land on my guy and kill me. That's the only thing that annoyed. That's happened like 5 times, and that's one thing I don't like.
And you get it because you get a queue in Destiny 2, right? If I'm not mistaken, what Destiny 2 is that you go from completely and entirely edge to edge full screen to letterboxing on the top and bottom. And so we had an interesting conversation around the development shop today, and I talked about, because in my effort to eat healthier, one of the things that I know is the best way for me to do that is by pushing as far down range and as close to the end of my commute as possible, healthy food sources. So that's what I've done, is I've tried to push all of my like food choice mechanisms as far as I possibly can all the way to my office. And so I bought a little slow cooker last night. So I go to turn the thing on. There's no indicator light to tell me that the thing is on. So I literally I turned it on. I like had to wait 15 minutes. I had to come back and start like touching around it, like eventually burning my hand to verify that the thing is on. My point in this is that I think this is predominantly coming from the age of the iPhone and Apple's stated objective of minimalism, is that is propagating itself throughout many industries. Notice that 9 times out of 10 when you buy a laptop today, there's no hard drive seek indicator light anymore, which drives me batty, because it was one of my key ways of troubleshooting a laptop to determine if it was completely locked up and was not going to recover. Now that's been taken away. That is also propagated to the games industry, where there has been this effort to walk things back from the HUD and do things like you've mentioned, which also drives me nuts. And it's one of the key reasons I'm not playing Spider-Man. It's one of the key reasons why Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which I tweeted out today, is still sitting in the plastic. Which, admittedly, as a gamer, it shouldn't be, but it is. And one of the things is because my experience in the first Tomb Raider and a lot of games, and it speaks to what you're talking about, I despise when you jarringly rip control out of my hand, slipstreamed into an action sequence, and just as you mentioned, and then I don't realize that I'm in some faux QuickTime event, or in a situation that I can't prevent until I'm already mad about it, right? And yeah, and like in the scenarios you're talking about, you know, oh, was I just supposed to die? Is there no way out of it? The only way to corroborate whether or not that's the case is to like go Google a bunch of stuff and see if, right? Otherwise, worst case scenario, you keep banging your head against the wall, you know, if it's feasible, to try and play the level over and over and over again, right? Until you realize, oh, there's no way out of this. Like, it's just inevitable that I'm going to die.
And, you know, this is the first time I've ever played Battlefield, so coming from early day Call of Duty, like OG Call of Duty on PC, you know, when that was like, oh, ooh, look, you know, there's these, you know, it's so realistic. Look at all this stuff that's happening around you. So I assume that that's probably a common thing, but, you know, that soured it. For the most part, you know, I'm happy to have played it, and I want to do the campaign missions. Like it's enough where I'm like, you know what, I'm probably going to do the campaign, and that'll be that. I feel very ignorant about the weapons. Like when I'm going through, you know, it'll be like, oh, look, I found this weapon. I'm like, okay, I'll pick that up. And you can only carry so much. And then I start to use it. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible or not. So there's some experimentation there that I don't know if I have the patience or if I should be coming in with a little bit more knowledge from the multiplayer to know if that weapon's going to help me or not. So that's kind of a negative, but it's solid enough and well done enough, and like I said, the setting is unique enough for me that I'm going to continue. As far as the multiplayer aspect, real quick, I know because we're running short on time and we got a couple more games we want to touch base on before we head out. I did not play multiplayer. I had some guests over the house this weekend who like Battlefield, and I was like, they're like, oh, can we play? And I was like, oh, sure, I'll log in. Unfortunately, this is a type of game where like you can't just, it's not Fortnite where you can buy it, like play it on Xbox and log in on PC and it's all the same. So they had to use my account, and unlike you, he had no trouble getting into multiplayer and going to town. So, but that also raises the one thing that I said is like the kill death ratio. Is it bad that like my OCD is like screaming at me that now my kill death ratios, even though I really have no intent to play Battlefield 1 online, there's like a record in my name of that, and it just drives me batty. I don't know.
So just simply a record that you've played it before, or that your statistics have been contaminated by virtue of somebody else playing underneath your profile?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't, man, I don't know. I guess for me, it depends on, like, what it makes me think of is, my daughter my oldest kid plays Skylanders Imaginators, and she has typically just played under my game save because I was like, yeah, whatever. But this weekend, I don't even know what triggered it, but I did force her to start a new game save. So I was like, you pick your Imaginator, you play as that one, right? I'll play my campaign. Yeah, I just don't know. That is a weird kind of, not weird. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't.
I'm not gonna say don't play or anything. It's just like I wish I had a little bit more control over it. Like to be able to say, hey, can I reset my stuff? But apparently you can't. So anyway.
Yeah, it's a weird thing where games, like locally installed games, I think because of rampant DRM, don't give you any kind of ability to provide like a guest
right
instance.
And I wish we could, even if it's like under your account, so it's not like there's some weird account share. I don't know. It's like the big thing around my house is like little kids pick up and like anytime I turn on Super Mario Odyssey, I have no idea where my guy's going to be. I'm like, I don't remember buying that, and my wife was complaining she's playing Captain Toad Treasure Tracker and got really into the game, surprisingly. And she hit the end where she doesn't have enough gems to keep moving on. You unlock the future levels if you've collected enough stuff. And she's like, but I can't find the gem. And then she went back and she's like, wow, these gems are easy to find. I don't think I even played this level before. I wish this was one of the things in Nintendo Online. I wish we could password protect our Switch profiles.
Oh, yeah.
So little kids can't get in there and mess with your stuff. But
and you talk about the selling of stats. What it reminds me of is now I never understood it before, but Unreal Tournament on PC used to have this checkbox that you would click to start and stop stat logging.
Huh.
And I realize now, maybe that's why, so that you could enable somebody to go in and play, maybe
try it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So one last little story about this, about sharing of an account. My wife was super into Zelda Breath of the Wild. Okay. She played it for months. And she remembered she started up and she was upset because she had no arrows left. So she had no arrows, no fire arrows, no nothing. And I forget what they call like the light arrow in the new game. But she wandered into like a town and she looked around and there are arrows in like all the buildings. So some kid just picked up the game and basically shot like 100 arrows like in the same spot. So,
and while we're on this topic and spooling some ideas, and while we've also been kicking around a lot of angst over the complete clown show that the Nintendo Online capability has been in its launch and release, it lends to the thought of like, I wish you could, and I don't know why you can't, on any platform for any game, save an instance of a cloud save, and like you said, like create a pin around it, right? So no matter what somebody does locally, you would always have the ability to go to the cloud and pull down a save that was, somewhat protected.
Well, okay, so you're saying the fact that it's a backup in the cloud. Super Mario World Odyssey kind of lets you do that because they have like an active, what I would call chain of saves, and you can go in and manually save that becomes the active chain, to use like the server administrative term. And so you can kind of do that, and that saved me a couple of times because I think one of my kids accidentally deleted one entire save for me. And I was able to like go back in there and find something. But anyway, that's enough of that. Do you have you want to talk a little Titanfall 2 real quick?
No, not really. I mean, I've been playing Titanfall 2. I'm very near end game, so it's the only thing I'll mention about it is it's been reminding me of the remorse that I often feel for buying a game and then not finishing it or sticking with it or going back to it with sufficient revisit time. It's been sitting in my backlog for two years, and I didn't realize how fun the campaign was. It's also a little aggravating, but again, it makes me wish I had played more of it when it was more so in the zeitgeist.
Video games are such a great hobby. I mean, they're so fun, but they're also there's so many great games out there, and they're all require so much of a time investment. And sometimes it's sad. I have one last game that I put in my queue that I played, a little Nier Automata, continuing my campaign, and I had a couple of anecdotes. First, I just want to say, I do like the mission structure. The side quests, they're quick. For an RPG, you do this, you talk to this person, you go kill this, or you go do X, Y, or Z, and you get back. And I just feel like it's a little bit more of a, like you said, the dopamine hit. I get a good dopamine hit. I'm able to play for an hour or two and get some side quests knocked out. And, there's a reward loop there. One thing about Nier Automata itself, as far as just nice little touches that I keep noticing in the game, you get emails, right? You're part of an enterprise, so every now and then the game will pop up. You've got something in your inbox. You gotta go check your mail. And so first little tidbit I noticed, they take your system time from the PlayStation, and that's the timestamp on the email. So you can see when you actually got them for reals. And then the second thing that I liked is the most recent email was a notice from IT saying that the server was full and everybody needs to get their pictures and videos off because it's not business related. So and that was it. That was the whole email. So that I thought that was cool. Kudos to I can't even remember the developer's name now. I'm gonna have to fact check myself, but it's great when you find little Easter eggs like that and little touches, and much appreciated. Platinum Games. Sorry. Okay.
Those are the same people who did Bayonetta. Is that right?
I'm fact checking that too. Yeah, Bayonetta Platinum Games. Right. So anyway, so that's our. I think that'll do it for the GX show. Like I said, no picks this time. We're going to do a little bit of a different format. Do you want to talk about that, or you just want to kind of roll with it as we go into next week?
So basically, I mean, it's caused me to rethink some of the things that we've said in the flock chat that I may have leapt too far. about changes. Really, it's probably going to feel very similar to what it is now. It's just simply that we're going to do the deep dive format show, and we're going to do it in alternating weeks with the GX show. So you will continue to get the GX show kind of like it was before, which was every other week or twice a month. And on the off weeks, you'll get something that is similar to the deep dive format. So we will still be doing news and deep analysis and breaking things down and trying to surface observations of the industry and gaming communities and the position of gaming in the world around us every other week. And then, the flavor of the GX show will change a little bit. It's going to be more topical and less just strict playlists because we all play differently at a different pace and with different focus. So in order to kind of level that out amongst all of us, we're going to make the GX show more about topic per show rather than simply our playlist. And then we're going to try and pivot our playlists around whatever that topic is going to be. So we will see how that goes. That leaves us with having to come up with 26 core topics for a GX show per year. So we'll see how that goes and how long we can keep it going.
I got one already, man. Open world racers and why they're horrible.
I think we have a bunch in the front of the queue. Yeah. I think then after we get through those first 10 episodes, I think that's where it might get a little rough.
But I'm excited about the change. It's always nice to change things up a little bit every now and then, so that things don't get too stale.
Yeah.
You also have a new podcast that was that the first episode last night?
It was the first episode. So we just kicked off a comic book podcast on the network. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I had a specific shtick that I wanted to be able to cover, and it required a certain type of person in their investment in comic books. So I recorded the first one on my own, having not been able to find a co-host to that point. And then what I had hoped happened, which was I was hoping then somebody else who was interested in doing something similar would see the tweet, pay attention, go listen to the podcast, and kind of what I was covering, and we go, that's kind of like the same type of stuff that I want to talk about. So Steven got in touch with me after the debut episode, and he was quickly recruited to be the co-host for the second episode, which we recorded last night. And that is available on SoundCloud, Pocket Cast, and here on our YouTube channel. And then what will probably happen next week is we will probably rebrand and settle on a title for the show that we both agree on, since the first one I just came up with on my own, and then he had his own podcast that was his own name. So we're kicking around some names and titles for the show, but we will probably debut the debut next week with our second/third episode, which will still be in the same format, but will just be a newly branded name.
Sweet. All right. So I guess that'll do it for episode 63. That's a lot of episodes.
It is.
Of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. All right. We will see you next Tuesday, approximately 9:15 Eastern. 3 amigos, not sure which 3 will be on, and we'll talk games and have some fun. So until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.